Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I really want to just say thank you to everybody that's been listening to this show. Such great feedback. Everybody reaching out on Instagram, commenting on our YouTube videos. Several of these episodes are professionally done videos on YouTube. We bring our guests in, so be sure to check that out as well. This will not be one of them. This is just an audio only. Also, thanks to the people at the GNCCs. We've been going to the GNCC series here recently, competing with our e-bikes, and the amount of people coming up and saying hello was awesome. I even had a young guy ride by on the race course, and as he was passing me, he had said, "Hey, I love your show." So, man, I really appreciate that. I'm glad everybody's into it. We've got a lot of great guests coming up. Today's a little bit of a different episode. I am both your guest and your host. We've had several requests of people asking to explain a little bit more about my company, what actually pays the bills. This podcast is not my job. It's something that's a passion project. I'm the founder and CEO of Impakt Results. A lot of you know it as Impakt Media. That's our media, video, and audio division. But Impakt Results, we're going to tell you a little bit about the backstory of how in the heck did I go from a kid that was just a super fan of the sport to running a company that's the fastest growing motorsports digital marketing company in the United States. So we're going to talk about that today. But before we do, if you haven't subscribed to RacerX, now's a great time to do it. We just mentioned e-bikes. RacerX is going to be giving away an e-bike, and you've got a chance to win that if you subscribe. I'd appreciate it if you use my link. That'd be awesome. RacerXOnline.com/Moto Marketing. Also, our friends over at FMF, Little D had said, "Hey, why don't we take care of the listeners of the Moto Marketing Podcast and hook them up with a discount on our swag, on our merch?" So if you go to FMF's site for their apparel and use the code MMP30, MMP30, you can get 30% off your apparel, hats, shirts, whatever it may be. They're doing a really cool thing over there. If you haven't been following them, Pulp has talked about it a little bit. You've probably seen it yourself, but FMF The Drop is awesome. It's their subscription box, and you get unique one-off shirts that Donnie and his team design over there that you're not going to get anywhere else. So check it out at FMF. Check them out on Instagram, and again, use the code MMP30 to get 30% off. Lastly, I want to talk to you about a new brand that we have launched. My partner at Impakt Results and I, we were working on something pretty special in the background during the whole COVID-19 pandemic. So we founded Moto brand, and like I said, it was founded during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic when everything was shut down and the sport that we live for was taken from so many of us, and that's cycling and moto. You know, waking up on a Saturday morning knowing your local track was closed, there would be no Supercross, and for many of us, we couldn't even get out of our house to go hit the local riding spots with our crew, so we were forced to be reminded of how much the sport of moto truly means to us. So we wanted to create something for that. The Moto brand collection represents a collective of individuals that don't just ride, but we live to ride, and when we don't have that, we're not whole, right? There's just something missing, and for most of us, we're miserable. For those that consider their bike to be part of their identity, that's what this brand is for. Maybe it's the way that you bond with your son or your daughter or your friends. Perhaps it's the way that you blow off stress of your day job, or hey, for some of us, maybe even it's your marriage, right? It's more than a sport for us. It's a way of life. It's what we live for, and we wanted to do something for that. That's what Moto brand was created for. It's a purpose-driven brand. It's more than just a shirt that you throw on in the morning, but the designs that they represent something. They represent who you stand for. So I want you to check it out. Let me know what you think about it. Go to themotobrand.com. Check out the designs. We have new drops coming soon, and we're going to do that frequently. It's for people that both cycle and get down on the moto, guys and girls alike. Go to themotobrand.com. All right, let's get into the episode. So I want to just kind of take a step back, and I have so many people that listen to this that are wanting to get into the sport, wanting to work in the sport, and maybe it's a mechanic, or maybe they want to work in marketing, or they want to work for Fox, or they want to work for Monster, or they want to work for Arma, whoever, or they want to work for Racer X. And I was there, right? I grew up. I moved off of a 250-acre cattle farm when I was in grade school. And in middle school, I moved into town. I moved to a place called Bridgeport, West Virginia. And I didn't have that many friends when I first moved there because I was a new kid. So what happened was I took a liking to my bicycle, which quickly became a motorcycle. I got my dad to buy me a motorcycle, and I started going out and riding. And that's how I met my friends in town. So I became just a fan, right? I started watching Supercross and Motocross, and I subscribed to every magazine, and one of them was Racer X. And I remember when I was, 9 or 10 years old, I might have been 11, I remember when it registered to me that Racer X was in Morgantown, West Virginia, which is about 45 minutes from Bridgeport, West Virginia, where I lived. And I was blown away because I thought this whole moto thing was a West Coast only thing. And for this magazine, this behemoth, the MTV, and I mean that in the good way, of our sport, like it was such a big deal, and man, it was just up the road. So I became obsessed with, that's what I want to do. I want to work for Racer X. That obsession became even more so when I was in high school, and the high school had this like community high school wide yard sale to raise money for a couple different causes. I forget what it was, but I remember going and I saw this guy dropping off all this Thor, all this Loretta Lynn's, all this motocross stuff in these bags, and I was like, what is going on? Who is that guy? And my journalism teacher, who knew I was into moto, said, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. And they took me up to Mr. Tim Cotter. Tim Cotter was donating a lot of his old moto apparel that were from Loretta Lynn's of past, or maybe, brands that they've worked with advertising wise gave him some jackets and they just didn't need them anymore. So he was donating it. Man, I picked up everything I possibly could pick up. And I met Tim, and Tim kind of took me under his wing. And for those listening to this that don't know Tim Cotter, he's one of the guys. He's the guy that runs amateur racing in the United States, right? There's several people that make it happen, but Tim is kind of the face. You also probably know his voice. He's one of the most iconic announcers that's ever been when it comes to pro motocross. So Tim was from Bridgeport. And I happened to meet him at that one day and became friends with his son. And Tim kind of mentored me and took me to things that I never would have gotten to do. I got to have dinner with Mike Alessi when I was a kid, when him and Tony came to High Point, and they were in the hunt for the I think it was a 250 or lights, whatever they called it, when he was on KTM. So just opportunities that I never would have gotten. I got to meet James Stewart, all these things when I was a kid that it's like, it was a big deal. So that just kind of fueled the fire, man. I really wanted to work in the sport. This was my passion, man. I'll never work a day in my life if I can do this stuff. So then kind of life went on, and I stayed very close with Tim and his son and his whole family. And I went through college, and going through college, I was like, man, I'm really into video and marketing, and that's what I want to do. But I want to work for myself. I don't want to work for somebody. I didn't have the opportunity. There was nothing available really to at Racer X, so I didn't have that opportunity to work there. So what happened was I started a video production company, which quickly turned into a marketing company when I met my business partner, Impakt Marketing, which turned into Impakt Media, which is now referred to as Impakt Results. So this happened in 2012 when I graduated college. started this business, and we worked with pretty much anybody but Moto, right? You're talking clients that I had zero passion for. If you had a pulse and a wallet and money to spend, man, I'd do everything I could do to help you with your marketing. Started very small. My business partner did web design and graphic design. I shot the videos. I posted on the social media for our clients, and we were working with law firms and restaurants, and we had some great clients, but look, it is what it is. I don't wake up in the morning just rearing to go to market a restaurant, right? But you got to start somewhere. So 2012, 2013, 2014 go by, 2015, and we're starting to grow. We've got interns that turned into staff. We've got a growing staff. And, I think it was 2015, maybe 2016. Nick Kester, who's no longer at MX Sports, he's moved on to different things. Nick Kester and Tim Cotter reached out to me and with some questions about using this social media thing, quote unquote, to market the nationals, a few of the races, and I think it was Budds Creek and High Point and maybe Ironman. And I said, hey, give me a shot. Let me show you that my team and I are really good at what we do, and that we can help you guys sell more tickets online for these races. Let us just, whatever, like I don't care what the budget is, just give us some money to spend on ads and let us manage your ads, and let us show you that we can market this stuff and be a partner in this. So they gave us a shot, and ultimately the person you're trying to prove yourself to there is Carrie. Carrie Joe has always been just awesome to me, but she is the queen of moto and very intimidating if you're trying to get your foot in the door. You'll want to make her happy, right? So, and we did just that. We had just stellar results. They were stoked on what had happened. So what the next step was, the next year, they said, hey, come to the National Promoters Group meeting. We want to introduce you to the other racetrack promoters for the Nationals. So I went and I got to meet these people, I don't think realize it now, but at the time, going into a room and being like, oh my God, there's Tim and Amy Ritchie who run Redbud. Oh wow, there's Jill from Unadilla and her brother. Like, oh wow, there's Ryan from Washougal, and all these people that, to me, I grew up watching the races at their track. And I'm into business as much as I'm into sports. So these people are like rock stars to me. But I had to internalize that, right? I had to not let that come out and be like, I'm just a fanboy, because I was serious. Like, I'm a businessman. I was a young businessman at that time. I'm 31 now, so I'm still young, but I was early to mid 20s. So I kept it together, and gave a presentation of what we did the year before, and how we got those results, and several of them were intrigued, and more of them started to work with us. And year in and year out, we got really good results, and nobody ever lost money on betting on us. In fact, they could tell exactly how many tickets they sold, how much money they made off of their investment with my company, Impakt Results. And that is where the start came from. And it was simply working with the Pro Motocross Nationals, which then allowed me to be able to approach additional companies and say, hey, and we were also helping the Racer X side of the building as well, and be able to say, hey, look, this is what we're doing for Racer X, this is what we're doing for Lucas Oil Pro Motocross. And if you can imagine how important it was for me to be able to say, and if you have any questions, look, three people you can reach out to are Kerry Russell, Davey Coombs, and Tim Cotter. Three of the most respected individuals in this sport, and it allowed me to get my foot in the door. And then also just my relationship with Davey and Tim being able to introduce me to folks. I mean, we work with Arma. They've been a massive supporter of the EMTB team. Scott has become a friend of mine, and we've really done a lot with them this year with their digital marketing. That came from having a glass of wine in Morgantown with Scott Sepkovic and Davey Coombs. So what I'm getting at, for those that are listening to this that want to build their own empire or want to get their foot in the door and work for somebody else, which is completely awesome because not everybody is meant to run their own business, it's relationships. It wasn't my degree. I got a degree in journalism, and I was a horrible student. I had ADHD or ADD. I just struggled, right? So it wasn't my college degree that ever got me in the door. It was serendipity. It was capitalizing on relationships. It was having the right motive, not being in it just for me. But when I got that opportunity to prove myself, it was how much can I give? Not, hey, my God, let me charge them $40,000. It was, look, dude, I don't care what you pay me. Just, you got to have enough money to pay for the ads. I don't care if I make any money. I'm trying to prove myself. It was really capitalizing on those relationships and using it as an opportunity to prove myself. And then what had happened is, I mean, Davey's just been the most amazing reference for my business, because anybody in this sport is going to listen to Davey Coombs. Anybody in this sport is going to hear out Tim Cotter or Kerry Joe. And I got that shot to prove myself to them. And that's what got the ball rolling. Now, fast forward to 2019, 2020, we are in a 4,000 square foot space in Morgantown, West Virginia. We've got about 750 to 1,000 square feet of that space is our studio, which is now solely dedicated to the Moto Marketing Podcast. The whole left side of the studio is that. The whole right side of the studio is either a fitness section for our staff, or we're working on a new bicycle corner of the studio. So we've got this awesome content. I've got a sales team, and all they do are they reach out to moto and cycling brands to spread the word of who we are, what we do, the results that we get, brands that we work with like 100%, like Arma, like Racer X, like Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, just to name a few of them. So that didn't happen overnight. I didn't start my business in 2012 and then I wake up and I've got this team of individuals that are reaching out to the brands that I idolized when I was a kid, and the people that I have on the podcast. Like, you know, I had a conversation with Jimmy Button, who's going to be one of our episodes. We recorded his podcast last week. Like, the 15-year-old Luke would have been absolutely just like freaking out. Like, it's amazing to see what relationship building and really honing your craft and getting results can do, but it doesn't happen overnight, right? So how I got from where I was to where I am now, and obviously we want to take it to much bigger heights, was one thing at a time, capitalizing on what I could capitalize on, and making sure that I burn as few bridges as possible going through this. You're going to have disagreements with people. There's going to be people that leave dissatisfied. You're going to not always see eye to eye with every person you come in contact with, but it's always been my goal to make sure that I never burn a bridge. And I think I've done a really good job of that. I'm proud of what I've built. It's really cool to have people coming up to me that I can see myself in them, like at the GNCCs, when it's very easy for me to interact with race fans and fans of this podcast, and they come up and they ask me these questions, or they reach out to me on Instagram. I'll screen cap these things and send it to my mom and dad, because like they know that was me when I was 14 or 15, and their only passion is to work in moto or take pictures of their favorite supercross racers and get paid for that. And I can relate to that. So I think the biggest thing to keep in mind for a young aspiring moto professional is to find somebody that can drastically change your life, and figure out how you can bring them value, how you can befriend them, what you can do to help their life, probably more so on the business side of things, and try to do that. With me, I got very lucky. If I was in Morgantown, West Virginia, and Racer X was located in California, I don't think we'd be having this conversation, or maybe we would. I'm very persistent. I've got literally tattooed on my wrist, relentless. So I get things done when I want to make them happen. So I might have been able to make it happen, but it wouldn't have been quite this easy. So you might be in Iowa and you're like, man, how am I going to do this where I'm located? Well, you might have to try to get an internship with Arma Sport in the summertime and move to California. Or maybe you reach out to Charles Caslew at 100% and say, look, I will come intern for free, or work for free this summer. I just want experience. And you figure out a way to get somebody to fund you to go out there and live for 3 months and get your foot in the door. It's not just coming up to somebody, and Jason Wygant-Weege and I had this conversation on our podcast. Everybody comes up to him and says, it's my passion. I just want to work in the sport. Well, that's what everybody says. So there's a big difference between saying and doing. Everybody wants the fire, but not everybody wants to chop the wood. you got to be that person that wants to chop the wood. So, yeah, I mean, hope you enjoyed this. A little different. I'm your host and your guest. I try not to talk that much during the interviews with our guests. I want you to hear their story. I want you to hear their take on what their marketing approach is. I don't ever want to come in and say, yeah, but you should be doing this as well, or whatever. So I try not to talk. So when I had some folks reaching out and saying, hey, tell us about you. Like, who are you? What does your company do? How did you get to where you are today? I appreciate that. I was humbled by that, and I hope you got some value out of this. So I think long and the short of it is, if you had me say, hey, this is what Impakt Results is, we're a digital marketing company. We specialize in Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, Snapchat ads, LinkedIn ads, social media ads, right? We also do search marketing, so your Googles, your search engine optimization, your pay-per-click advertising, and we do e-commerce website design. The brands that we like to work with, the brands that we get the best results for, brands that sell their product online. We had a client just last week that cracked the $2 million mark from our ads, and they've been working with us for under a year. So those are the types of people we like to work with. Arma Sport, obviously, you buy their product online. We help them sell it online. Again, this was years in the making. Impakt of 2012 looks very different than Impakt of 2020, right? It matured and changed and transformed over time, and we found ourselves in the sport that I've wanted to work in for so many years, with a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Literally, all of the above was true. Blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. So I really appreciate you guys listening. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We've got so many great guests still lined up. I think next week's episode is going to be Nate Adams talking about his transition from pinnacle of freestyle and action sports to still riding, but really transitioning into being that entrepreneur. Really enjoyed that conversation with him. It's going to be a video as well as an audio episode, so be sure to listen to it on your drive, but check out the video episode, and you can see the cool studio we got, and you can also see our guests as they tell these emotional stories on YouTube. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Have a great and safe 4th of July weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpt.com. That's ThinkImpakt.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.